Alright, in this video, I want to talk about the 8 kings. And you may be asking, what 8 kings? Well, it was actually 7, but I want to talk about this here. In Revelation chapter 17, it talks about a harlot. This harlot is riding upon a beast. And I believe when we get a depiction of this harlot with this beast, it's a mixture of God's people mixed with this kingdom. It is the iron and clay of Daniel's statue, or Nebuchadnezzar's statue that Daniel interprets in Daniel chapter 2. And when we take a look at this here, I wanted to apply what is said here about the kings to that statue. Right? Because I know a lot of people, including myself, when we read this, we go backwards from where John is speaking, and we go with Rome, and it says 5 is falling and 1 is, and we look, well, what was before Rome? Well, we got Greece, we got Medo-Persia, we got Babylon. That's only 3. So then we throw in Assyria and Egypt. And that's all fine and good, that makes some sense there. But what if that's not the case? So let's go through here and look at it. Verse 7, it says that the woman is on this beast. This beast carries her, and it has 7 heads and 10 horns. And then it goes on to tell us about this beast at verse 8. It says, the beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. So that's interesting. This beast is this some people say it's a person, right? But I wouldn't say that, right? I think it's ultimately personified by a person. But hear me out. When we go and we look at Revelation chapters 12 and 13, where it mentions beasts, these beasts represent nations. And Revelation chapter 13, we read about a beast that's a amalgamation of a lion, a leopard, and a bear. These are the beasts that we see from Daniel chapter 7, which represent kingdoms, right? The beasts represent kingdoms. But just like these beasts represent kingdoms, they also those kingdoms are represented by the ruler of that kingdom, such as Nebuchadnezzar, the head of gold, is Babylon. But Daniel says, this is you, O king. Right? You're this head of gold. You're Babylon, right? So when it's talking about this beast, we need to understand that, yes, it's talking about this person. But just like when we read about the beast, it represents a kingdom. Just like this woman, he may be personified by an actual woman, I don't know, some kind of Jezebel, I don't know. But we know that it personifies God's people, and it's representation of Israel, God's people from the first covenant, Christians, God's people from the second covenant. And they may just be Israel in name only, or Christian in name only. They're probably not true believers, as they are harlots, right? They're going after Satan, this world, the flesh, sin, rebellion. They're a harlot. So this woman represents all those people, right? So the beast also represents the rest, the Gentiles. As Israel, even Jesus refers to the unbelievers of the Gentiles as dogs, as pigs. The Samaritan woman, or the Canaanite woman that came to him, he refers to her as a dog, right? Because she wasn't a Jew, right? Because all the heathen, the Gentiles, are beasts according to God, according to the scriptures. Not that Israel is really any different in the way they act, and they want to be just like the heathen and all that, but from the point of view of God, that's how he sees it. And that's how we ought to accept it. So, when we look at this beast that was and is not and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition, I had a lot of thoughts on this, because you think, okay, what kingdom went into the bottomless pit? One of the first things I thought of was Egypt. Egypt had the dealings with Israel, they enslaved them, wouldn't let them go, and eventually they went into the Red Sea crossing to chase after the Hebrews. They got crushed by the waves. They went into that abyss, which is a kind of a synonym for this bottomless pit, right? The ocean that just seems to go on and on, deeper and deeper, right? And that's what I would think, but I think what it's talking about here, as it says it goes into perdition, is actually the nation of Israel. And some people may think that is some kind of blasphemy or something, but hear me out. In Revelation chapter 12, we have a woman seen in heaven, clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and has 12 stars, obviously representing Israel, right? The 12 stars, the 12 tribes of Israel, has a connection to Joseph's vision or dream that he had about the sun, moon, and stars, and how it represented Jacob and his family, right? The family of Israel. And this woman, Israel, personified by Mary bringing forth Jesus, as Jesus was brought to us through Israel, through the bloodline of Israel, the Hebrews, the Jews, from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? And that woman in Revelation 12 represents all of Israel, but is personified by one Mary, right? Mary didn't have to flee from a dragon and flee into the wilderness for 3.5 years after Jesus ascended. So we see that this is a depiction of Israel as a whole, but ultimately she was the virgin that brought forth Jesus, right? She personifies Israel, metaphorically speaking, right? As a symbol. Just like in that same chapter of Revelation 12, the man-child represents Jesus, and that represents the one body of the church. We're all one body, right? So it represents all of the Christians. So in Revelation 12, we get to see Jews and Christians, and how the Christians are removed, and then the dragon goes after the Jews, the Hebrews, in Revelation 12. So when we're looking at that there, Judas, the son of perdition. The only time the son of perdition is mentioned, and somebody is called the son of perdition directly, it's by John the Revelator. He calls Judas the son of perdition, or quotes Jesus calling him the son of perdition. And then he mentions that this beast was and is not and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. Well, we're told that Judas went to his own place, right, after he hung himself. When he betrayed Jesus, he didn't go to Jesus for forgiveness. He went to the leadership of Israel. Judas represents Israel as in those who say they are Jews and are not. The ones who reject Jesus as God, as their king, as their savior. And they betray him, right? And as it says here, the beast thou sawest was and is not and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. That's a connection, obviously, to the son of perdition, the man of sin, the lawless one, the Antichrist, the one that betrays Jesus and ultimately will betray the Jews. Just like they betrayed Jesus, they're going to be betrayed by this fella, by this kingdom that they're setting up. Because ultimately Israel and its leadership, government leadership, religious leadership, they're no doubt pulling the strings and have a lot of control in the world through finances. And they're trying to set up this new world order in this World War III where Israel will end up being the head of the nations. And, to fulfill prophecy. So I believe that this beast that was and is not shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. Well, I believe that is Israel. I believe that is Israel because No other nation was completely destroyed and its people scattered and its language lost. It was thrown into the bottomless pit because it betrayed Jesus, it turned on him. It said, "We have no king but Caesar," so there you have the iron and the clay mixed. But they were cast off. But now that this beast has received a deadly wound, that deadly wound is healed. And it's saying that this guy, Donald Trump, is their Prince of Peace, their Gentile Messiah. He has a 99% approval rating in the nation of Israel. And they gave him the crown of Jerusalem. He converted to Judaism. He actually gave his replica, weird thing that he has this, a replica of a golden Ark of the Covenant he gave to the nation of Israel. You need to think about these things. And we haven't even got into the whole first verse of this paragraph here. And there's a lot to be said there. But we're going to take this and we're going to try to apply it as we keep going. As it says here, "And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is." And isn't that what a lot of people do? Like Israel, all of a sudden it's back in a day, it's a nation like that. They all wonder after the beast. And you have now all these, not only obvious Jewish Zionists, but not all Jews are Zionists. They actually speak out against a lot of these things. But also there's the Christian Zionists. Just like a lot of Christians don't support Israel on a lot of things they're doing, there's Christian Zionists that they're wandering after the beast, so gung-ho supporting Israel, and they're all gung-ho supporting Donald Trump. So we have this nation coming up and this person to represent it coming up. So let's go on here. And it says at verse 9, "And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings." Now, I have a little picture here I wanted to bring up real quick. It's a really crappy drawing of the statue of Daniel. I have it separated. We have the head here. It's supposed to be a gold Babylon. I didn't color coordinate it. The chest and arms of silver is the Medo-Persians. We have the belly and thighs of brass, the Grecian Empire that took over there. And then after that, the Roman Empire ended up taking over. And then I believe this kingdom here was actually started up in Jesus' day. I call it the Roman Catholic Israel nation here, where Rome mixed with the clay, the miry clay, the baked clay, God's people. Both Israel, where they said we have no king but Caesar and turned on Jesus, and then the Christians, which again turned on Jesus and accepted Constantine and the Bishop of Rome as the head of the church, basically saying we have no king but Caesar. They all mixed with this kingdom. And it was forming and was there in Jesus' day. That's why at this time of when Jesus showed up, let's just symbolize that with the cross here. When he showed up, what were they looking for? The Jews were looking for the stone cut without hands to come hit the statue here and destroy it all to establish God's kingdom, which is symbolized in Daniel 2 as this great mountain that encompasses the whole earth. And they figured they were going to be set free, and they were going to be put, let's put an eye up here, Israel at the top of the nations. You know, they're this mountain. But Jesus, he didn't come as a conqueror, so they were kind of like, they rejected him because he didn't come in the way that they wanted him to or expected him to, and they were exalting themselves instead of humbling themselves. But I believe this kingdom right here was formed in Jesus' day. It's right here. It received a deadly wound, as Israel was destroyed, but now it is back, and the world is wandering after the beast, and who can make war with it? It is back. And so when we look at this thing here, right, and it says there are 7 kings, right? 5 have fallen, 1 is, and the other is not yet come, and when he cometh, he must continue a short space. All right, so let's take a look here. We have 1 king here, Babylon. Some people take Medo-Persia as 1 kingdom, but it's actually 2 kingdoms, so that's actually 2 kings, right? So this is actually 3 kingdoms, because we have Babylon and Medo-Persia. Then we have the 4th one here, the Grecian Empire. Then we have the 5th one here, the Roman, right? So these would be the ones that have fallen, so we'll cross them down. And he says that there's one that is, and that's what was existing at that time. Who was persecuting the Christians at the time John was writing it? It was both Rome and, well, I guess we'll put a J this time, for the Jews. All right, so the supposed Israel, the ones that rejected Jesus, were trying to use Rome as they did to kill Jesus, to also kill those that follow him. So they joined together to kill the Christians. And that's exactly what they did. At least, the true Christians, when they realized they can't beat them, they joined them, and then they created what I call here the Roman Catholic Israel, down here, as I called it, right? So, but like I said, Israel received a deadly wound, because they fight against one another. Satan's kingdom it's partly strong, partly weak, and it says they don't cleave to one another. It says this iron and clay doesn't quite cleave together, so they butt heads, right? And it even says the same thing over here, coming back to Revelation 17 before we finish this paragraph. When you read verses 15 down to 18, it says that beast ends up turning on the woman that rides the beast and destroys her. Right? So she's in control. She's riding that beast. But eventually she is destroyed by that same beast. And, yeah. Right? So we see that happened. Rome was mixed with Israel, killing the Christians, but eventually Rome ends up destroying Israel in about 70 AD. So let's continue here. It says that there's one that's going to come and continue a short space. And then it says, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. So, like I was saying here, right here, this, I don't have a lot of room here. I'll just switch colors. Let's go to red because that will contrast well. Down here is the 6th one. The one that is when John was talking about. He receives a deadly wound. So it's kind of teetering. It still has that Roman aspect. The Roman aspect kind of broke apart, but it's still there. It was there as the church, the Roman Catholic Church, which is very much Jewish in the sense that it follows Judaism in its structure of the priesthood and the exaltation of the priesthood over the people. And then they have their high priest and all that. And there would be a 7th that would continue for a short space. But then there's one that comes back, right? So after this, the kingdom kind of falls apart. It's broken up. We have this period of what we would call grace. Let's just put a big G here for grace, right? There's a cutoff point, and there's not really a ruler so much, right? The power is spread out, it's broken up, but then, so we got that, what does it say here? Let me come back to it. There are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. Now, I believe this has to do with America. Because right now, America has been going on for about 200 years, but it hasn't been a world power for 200 years. You could say that it became the world power and took over the world militarily, economically, after World War II. So we'll just put 1940 just to have a nice, easy number there. So the seventh that goes for a short time, 1940. The seventh one is America. And a short space, it's only been going for 60, 70, 80 years. Just about, right? It was actually world power after World War II. World War II ended about 1942. So we're right about 80 years, right? It's pretty close to it. Maybe a little bit more. We'll just say 80 years. 80 years is a short space for a kingdom to last, right? 80 years. So you got the 80 years there, a short space. And not only that, if you want to say America started 76, almost forgot the year there. It's going to be embarrassing. Let's say it started there. It's about 200 years. It's still a short space because from here to about 1940, it's 140, 50, 60, let's just say 65 years, 165 years, right? That's not a long time for a kingdom to be actually around, right? Not a very long time at all. And you could say it continued for a short space, but America's still here. Well, you see, it's at that time where there's an eighth that rises up, and that is Israel. Shortly after this, at about 1948, right? So America is not even 200 years old, and then Israel comes back as a nation. It's the eighth, and is of the seven kingdoms. I've lost my cursor, that's why I paused there. As it says here, verse 10, and there are seven kings, 5 have fallen. One is, that's the Roman-Israel joint kingdom that's persecuting the Christians at the time John is writing this. The other is not yet come, America. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. America's here just for a short time, less than 200 years before. The beast that was and is not, even he is the eighth, Israel, and is of the seven, and goeth into perdition. Right? Because Israel is going to go into destruction as the world is going to turn on Israel. And I say there's not a lot of good things coming from Israel. A lot of their flag is satanic. It's the star of Rephaim or Saturn, which is Satan. I believe they do worship Lucifer, and that's why they are basically the head of the kingdoms of this world and are blessed financially and blessed in this world, is because that's what they really do in secret. And that doesn't mean all Jews do this. This is their leadership. Just like in Jesus' day, the leadership turned on Jesus. Their government leadership and their religious leadership turned on Jesus. But a good chunk of their people followed Jesus. Right? They're not to be condemned. With the righteous is not to be condemned with the unrighteous. Right? They're a remnant that is saved from that. And even today, there is Jews, there are Hebrews that speak out against Israel and a lot of the evil things that they do. Right? Tel Aviv is the gay capital of the world. So don't think they're some holy nation. Right? Or should I say the homosexual capital of the world. I don't want you to think gay is in the happy capital of the world. That's not what I mean. So, the big issue there, right? So, I believe this kingdom that's coming up that received a deadly wound and has come back is Israel. And I believe the Antichrist comes up that way because it gets your support. Look at all the Christians, right? Don't we want to support Israel? And it's weird because over the last, week, There was something telling me about how Israel is not to be numbered with the nations. Israel is not to be numbered with the nations. And I was like, yeah, Israel is, though. Israel is numbered with the nations in the United Nations. It's numbered with them. And he's like, Palestine isn't a state. Palestine is not numbered with the nations. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of interesting. What if they are the true Jews? And I was thinking about it, and I was like, I don't know about that. But it is interesting that they don't have a state, and they shouldn't have to have a state for them to be treated like a people, like a sovereign people. It's like they want to force them into Satan's system, right? They got to register as a state so that they can be regulated and controlled by the world government. And since they're not part of that, they're an enemy of the state, right? And it was just a thought that was coming to me, and it just kept popping up. Mostly it was like, Israel's not to be numbered with the nations. Israel's not to be numbered with the nations. I was like, yeah, it's not. Then why is it? Is it in rebellion? Yeah, I think it's in rebellion. Well, what if it's not really the nation of Israel? I was like, well, maybe it's not, right? Maybe it's not, but I'm not going to fight against it because I'm not too sure on all these things. That's why I say I understand if people don't want to bless the nation of Israel, they don't want to support it because of a lot of the evil things going on, how they reject Jesus Christ and they persecute Christians just like the Muslims do. Yeah, by all means, don't support them. I have no issue with that. But don't fight against them, right? Don't turn on them because God's merciful and gracious, right? I believe it's Romans 11 that says, yeah, these Hebrews, they're your enemy for the gospel's sake, but they are elect according to the Father, and his promises are without repentance. So it's one of those things where you just got to back up. Ask God for discernment to discern all things, to discern the true Jews, Hebrews, his people, the true Israel from the false, the usurpers, the pretenders, the actors, right? The hypocrites. And then ask how you should be dealing with the situation, right? So, with that being said, let's continue this paragraph as it says here at verse 12. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. So what I believe is being said here is kind of like we see this BRICS United Nation kind of thing going on with Russia, China, Brazil, India, and a few other nations. I believe they've gotten to 10. Got the hiccups. I believe they've gotten to 10. And this might be that 10-horned beast, but I think ultimately Israel is going to rise up and be the head of the West, Europe, and North America. And they're going to run that show. And that's going to be the beast that these 10 horns give their power over to. And is also personified by the religious aspect, the woman that's riding it. And probably going to push upon the world the Noahide law, which is going to cause a lot of resentment. And eventually, as it says down here, the beast is eventually going to turn on that woman. Because I believe this beast is personified by the man Donald J. Trump, and that they're following after him, and he thinks that he got so much leeway with them that they're going to follow him no matter what, and he's going to try to get them to give in to the world and the world system, and they're not going to go along with it. I believe he's going to receive a deadly wound himself. I believe from a zealous Jew is going to maybe use a sling and stone to throw a rock into his head, because guns might be confiscated by this time, where he's claiming to be God and all this at their temple, and he's going to get hit right in the head with this thing, and it's a deadly wound. I think this is going to cause him to have that right eye darkened, and it's going to affect his right arm where it's kind of withered, as it says about the idol shepherd in, I believe, Zechariah. Sometimes I get Zechariah mixed with Zephaniah, but I believe it's Zechariah chapter 13 or so. 13, the number of rebellion. Don't quote me on it. I haven't looked at it in a while. But, yeah, I believe that's what's going to happen, and I believe he's going to bounce back. And when he bounces back, as it says, the beast that was and is not, and yet is, he's personifying, Israel rising back. They wanted this guy as their Messiah, their king, their savior, right? He's supposed to be the savior of America and even savior of the world. They wanted that, and then he's going to just completely turn on them, as we see here, and just start destroying them. And like I was saying, I believe the UN and the head of the UN and the head of the New World Order is going to be moved to Jerusalem. It might be because of economic collapses, world war, civil wars in different areas. The world's going to change, and there's going to be a new digital currency. AI is going to be running a lot of things. A lot of these 15-minute cities, they're going to reshape the earth, and Israel is going to be the head of the nations. But it's ultimately Satan's counterfeit Israel, just like he has a counterfeit Christianity. And he's usurping that place so that he can deceive the world, as he obviously has done. So, with that being said, I hope you think about this. Let me know what you think. I think it applies very well, but you tell me. You tell me. There's the son of perdition connected to this Judas rising back up, that old nation coming back up. Even Jesus says, hey, when you see the fig tree come up and it brings forth leaves, you notice he doesn't say it brings forth fruit. And you notice that Jesus said that the tree is supposed to be cursed, I believe he says forever. Or at least not to bring forth fruit forever. I imagine that has something to do with, through the old covenant, the law, it's not going to bring forth any fruit. And I think there's a lot of meaning to that, but I think there's a lot to this. So tell me what you think of how I'm seeing this. You think it makes sense, or it doesn't? You tell me if I should make another video clarifying it a little better. I know I like to use these things here, but I made it kind of messy here. But, yeah. Just to recap, Revelation chapter 17 tells us about 7 kings, 5 have fallen, one's going to come for a short time, and then there's an 8th who's of those 7 who comes back, who was the beast that was, is not, yet is, and the whole world wonders after that beast, and then eventually it's going to turn on 4, and then obviously the true Jews who are not going along with the system, and yeah, so the 5 kings that are fallen would be Babylon, Medo, Persia, Greece, Rome, because Rome, once it mixed with Israel and conquered Israel, it became that 6th kingdom, the iron and clay, right? Where Israel said, we have no king but Caesar. That's where they joined. That was basically a marriage vow there, right? They joined there. And then, of course, eventually, the iron and clay don't cleave together. There's a deadly wound of Israel. There's a 7th kingdom that comes up that doesn't exist yet, as it says. That comes but for a short space. I believe that's America. America became the next world power. And we see that's just a short space right before Israel comes back as the 8th, but is of the 7, because it comes from that 6th one, the one that ended up turning on Jesus and then going after the Christians, the joined Roman Jewish attack. Because if it wasn't for Israel and the Jews, Rome probably wouldn't be as motivated to go after the Christians. It probably still would have, but it wouldn't have had the same motivation and determination and what have you to be going after them as it did, right? But yeah, so I believe that's what's going on. That's why this beast, the eighth that's of the seven, it is not, yet it comes up out of the bottomless pit and goes into perdition. I believe this is Israel. It was tossed into that bottomless pit. It has risen back up. It's connected to perdition, the son of perdition, Judas, who betrays Jesus, being a Jew, hangs himself, goes to his own place, the bottomless pit, the abyss, comes back up. And we've been deceived because even myself look at Israel as, hey, we should bless them, not curse them. But I think they might be what we're warned about in the beginning of the book of Revelation. When it's talking about the seven churches, it talks about those who say they are Jews and are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. And they're flying the flag of Satan with that six-pointed star. You see this hexagram in everything. Music videos, TV shows, movies, sports, video games, comic books, regular books, magazines, on the news and commercials, on products. There's always hexagons, multiple hexagons. It's all pointing to that six-pointed star, which ties to the star of Rephaim or Saturn, which has this six-sided hexagon on one of its poles. It is its star, six-pointed. And Saturn is Satan. Just go do a quick study on that. So, yeah. That's why we see Israel still rejecting their Messiah. They have the homosexual capital of the world. And these Palestinians, not all of them are Muslims. I mean, we're made to think of them as Muslims that hate Christians. But for a longest time, they were a mixture of Muslims, Jews, and Christians. I mean, those areas, a lot of them were very much Christian. Like Iran used to be very much Christian. But there was some weird overthrow, and it became Muslim dominated. And a lot of these people may actually be the true Jews, and they're just not going along with that system, because there's even Jews, even that protest in New York about the nation of Israel and what it's doing and how it's actually preaching these things that are creating anti-Semitism and the hating of Jews, because you see these fake Jews, they hide behind the true Jews, because you don't want to attack the true Jews, the true Hebrews, but so they hide behind them, right? So that if you want to actually attack these, we'll just call them Zionists, you have to go through them, and then all of a sudden you're anti-Semitic, you're against the Jews, you're against the Hebrews, when you're not. You're against these ones lying about what they say they are. Now, I've talked about stuff like this before on other channels, and I've had those channels banned. So I wonder if this is going to get flagged and banned, but we'll see. But anyway, bit of a longer video. Thanks for watching all the way through. Hope you learned something and maybe put something together. Tell me what you think. If I'm way off, I'm hitting the nail on the head. Share with me stuff that you think agrees with this, things that you think disagree with this, some points. I can study this further and put something better together in another video. And yeah, please support with a quick prayer that God keeps me going, keeps this ministry going, this channel going. Just an amen to that should go a long way. Thank you for that support. You want to support in some other ways, there's some free ways to do so. You can interact in the comment section, like, or hit the heart, and subscribe, and hit the bell icon, share the video. These would be very helpful. I'd appreciate it. And if you are able to and you want to, you can support financially. I'm sure if you see that I'm fighting that good fight, that's a spiritual fight, not a physical fight, to win the hearts and souls of men, and that I'm feeding God's sheep, God will bless you. Maybe not. I'm not saying that this is some prosperity gospel. You give me money, God's going to give you money, but I'm sure He's going to bless you by you building up your treasures in heaven, by you giving up your treasures here on earth to help do His will. So if you're able to and you want to do that, you're blessing me in this world, and I pray you get a blessing for that in the kingdom to come. And if you don't, I'll share whatever blessings I get with you. How about that? I think that sounds like a pretty good deal. I mean, if you got the faith and you think, we're getting some stuff, let's share it. All right, let's work together here. I think it's a good idea. So, thanks for watching. Take care.